do so with the people news, with prejudice and without recourse, all rights reserved in the whole wide world and the heavens above. Alright, again, this is going to be part 2. So, well, this one's not part 2. I just finished up on part 2, and I'm going to proceed forward on this one, which is going to be part 3. Alright, so do subscribe to this channel. It's right above the phone here. If you guys need to write it out, spell it out, make sure you do so and subscribe to him. He is awesome. Alright, he's got a bunch of other things that you guys may be interested in, especially if you guys are really into upholding your rights. Okie trying to get this a little bit clearer. I don't know why it's... Alright, let's proceed forward, y'all.
Right here, I was just wondering what that is.
Yeah, I'm not even for sure because it's been forever, but no, we're voter registration.
Okay, alright, thank you.
You're welcome.
A discussion does come up that there could be confidential paperwork on display in the building, and they wouldn't want that recorded. The cameraman agrees that that shouldn't be recorded, but whether there's a camera or not, confidential paperwork out for the public to see.
They don't actually see. I'm just literally here to document. That is the extent of what I'm doing here right now. Okay, we need to make that like confidential for you then. Because when I...
Now here in this scene, the gal behind the counter is purporting that there is classified or privy information that is not open to public viewing. Now, if there be any information that is private or that is not to be viewed by the public for any reason, shape, or form, witness protection program, so on and so forth, this woman has a fiduciary duty to make sure that that information is kept under lock and key behind closed doors when they're viewing it and can't be readily seen by the public who are walking in to interact with these agents and agencies. So really what she's doing is just absolutely preposterous that she would say that somehow that there are secure documents in here that the public are not allowed to see, yet if you're sitting at your desk and reading those documents and I walk in and I can see them from standing at the counter, then she would be admitting to being in breach of her fiduciary duty to keep these secret documents or these documents that are privy only to the agents and agency out of the view of the public from where the general public has access, right? So her argument is absolutely frivolous, without merit, and if there were documents out in the public that people were not privy to that she is now has splayed out on her desk or on the counter, she would be the one at fault, not this man for simply seeing them on the counter.
Here I expect it to be secure.
The state allows us for the child support bureau here in let people be in the counter.
No, I got you. Well, I mean, if it's not a public area, I can't go back there.
Yeah.
You know? So, I like to see the rules are followed. And there's another rule. The state does not allow you to keep private information in the public view.
Right, which is where it's behind the counter.
To take care of that, if that's not the case. But,
No.
all right. What I like to see. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
When he exits the room, he finds that security has abandoned their post to go talk to...
Now right there is no more security guard at the gate watching the metal detector. You can clearly hear the metal detector going off, but these guys are so worried about a guy with a camera, they could care less if a man walked into the courthouse with a fucking bazooka. Talk about dereliction of duty and complete disregard for the lives in the courthouse, all because a man has a camera which they perceive to be far more dangerous than a man with a bazooka walking into the courthouse. And as you can see, the seat and the post has been abandoned, and he's in complete breach of his obligation and duty to secure the courthouse, all because a man is walking around with a camera.
Judges about getting this camera out of the building.
As far as I'm concerned, you guys are just good to come on through, you know what I mean? The guy isn't there. It's his job.
So we don't allow recording up here on the second floor. What's going on? We don't allow recording up here on the second.
Okay, simply stating we don't allow recording is not a law, okay? That's some disgusting edict perpetrated by a bunch of tyrants who don't want to be audio video recorded during their criminal activity for their enterprise while they unjustly enrich their principal from which they're paid from, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, so these are just absolutely asinine statements being made by agents and agency who swore an alleged oath to the Constitution. And again, you'll see that his name tag, I believe that is J period last name, again, using a false and fictitious unregistered DBA engaged in commerce trying to force down this man's throat some edict or bullshit he believes to be a rule that circumvents the Constitution and the First Amendment of the people.
Why not? Is that a law, or
The judge does not allow it up here.
right? She's got power over her courtroom. I'm not going to go into her courtroom.
Okay. But we don't allow it, so I'm asking you to step back in.
And as long as I'm not in the courtroom,
They don't allow it on this floor.
right? There's no law, dude. So you're not allowed to do it, and that's you. But I'm a citizen. I have to follow the law. Only charge that I could be charged with is contempt of court if I go into the courtroom.
Okay.
So the law says that the judge can do that. The law doesn't say anything about me not being allowed to practice my constitutionally protected activity on the second floor.
Now, there is something in here that I think everybody should be keenly aware of. When the man says that you may not record in here because the judge said so, he is correct in that assessment. That bailiff works for the judge, okay? And if the judge tells his employees that nobody's allowed to record, he is specifically talking to his employees, period. Now, the sheriff's department was never supposed to be working for the judges. They were supposed to be working for the American people. Somewhere down the line, it got misconstrued that we hire you, you work for us, you accept federal funding, you fall underneath the judicial branch now, and we will govern you as employees and tell you what you can and cannot do. Okay? But that
And to backtrack on that right there, I think the county branch, right, that's supposed to make all these codes and statutes and all that, whatever you want to call them, they're the ones that actually confiscated the sheriffs from we the people. And I think we need to get down there to the county elections office and tell them county members to release our sheriff back into our custody, because in the Constitution, them sheriffs are there to arrest the judge if they trespass upon us, right? Which you guys already heard about the trespass in the very first video. Okay, so if the judge does that, like when he comes after this guy here, right? What he should have told that sheriff,
okay,
is do not trespass upon I. Alright? Because that makes it very serious when it goes into a trespass. And but I think the county's member boards really just went in there and confiscated the sheriff, and because the ignorance of the sheriffs out there not studying the Constitution because you're too lazy to do so. That's the reason why you are voted in, sheriffs. You voted in there to protect us from government, from the judge. You can arrest any of the Senate. I live in Texas. Any of the Senate members, representatives, or even our governor if they are in your county. All right, and we call it county now. At one time, we didn't have counties, but since we have counties now, it's in our county now. Our sheriff cannot go arrest Greg Abbott because it's not in his jurisdiction. However, since they passed an unlawful law, then our sheriff can go, I'm going to have to call this other sheriff and say, hey, this was a wrong law, so knock it off. But if it gets in our county, even our governor could be arrested. And if you don't want the president in your county, the sheriffs to escort them through the county. People, we really just don't fully understand the power of the sheriff. Really don't.
That those edicts, those rules and regulations and private policy which do not equate to law, do not apply to we the people, period. And if you're going to treat me like an employee, you can bet your sweet ass I'm going to bill you like I'm an employee. And because we didn't talk about my wages before you started giving me egregious fucking policies to abide by, don't be crying when you receive your bill from me for $1.5 million for following your bullshit policy. You treat me like an employee, I'm going to bill you.
All right, American jurisprudence. Again, y'all. Resident is an employee of the government, whether it's county, city, the state. It attends to the government, okay? What we call government, right? Resident is not me and you. We keep calling ourselves residents, but that's because we're our ignorance of what the definition in American jurisprudence, what a resident truly is. That is an employee. So they are assuming when they come and try to confiscate your land because you're behind on taxes, they are assuming that you're a resident and you are agreeing that you're a resident. I'm not agreeing I'm a resident. And if you're calling me a resident, by gosh, I want to see that contract that I signed to be that resident. All right? And if you're going to press forward on me,
like an employee,
then I'm going to send you a bill. For my bill, I've been, watching over this land that they may claim, right? I'm going to send them a bill 24 hours a day, 7 days a week of being their security guard. If I'm going to be a resident, I'm going to get paid for it. So my bill is going to be pretty freaking hefty. I've been on this resident land, wink, wink, wink. So therefore, after 3 years, $300,000 a year or $100,000 a year for the next 3 years, you owe me a bill, $300,000. So if your tax is $7,000, you send them a bill of $300,000. Well, buddy, pay up. You're the one calling me a resident. You don't have no verifiable proof of contract. So I accept your offer that I'm your resident, so now you owe me $300,000 for the past 3 years of being a security guard over the land. Maintaining it and all that. Alright, sorry.
Do you treat me like an employee? I'm gonna bill you like a fucking employee. Alright, let's move on.
We're in the courthouse. Do you get what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying.
Okay, well then that's good. So let's just cut out the whole trying to give me unlawful directives, and I'll just go about doing my business, and I'll get out of your hair when I'm done. All right, thank you, man. Go through here since there's not only a courtroom around here. Nope. I got one. So the jury rooms are not open. Yeah, the jury rooms are closed. offices are the only things that I've been interested in. That door, they're not letting anybody in there because each is not allowed recording on those four. The judge has got power over the courtroom, man. They don't want recording on those four. That's fine, man. The judge has got power. Just ask politely.
Now, this agent and agency is doing nothing wrong here. He can ask till he's blue in the fucking face, all right? He can ask all day long, please don't do this, please don't do that. He's well within his rights to ask, all right? But you are under no obligation to obey this feeble man's simple request, okay?
Just leave this for. If you want to record downstairs, you're more than welcome. I'm more than welcome to record up here, man. I don't care what the judge wants, man. She's not the law. She enforces he, you know, what the judge wants, that's what he wants, man. But what I want is my constitutionally protected activities to be secured. You know what I'm saying? First Amendment, no law shall be passed abridging the freedom of the press. So as long as there's no law against it, I'm going to do it. Now, in the courtroom, the judge's got all the powers that she wants, you know, whatever. You know, I don't know. But, you know, he can...
Now, I'll stop right there because he kind of makes a mistake here where he says the judge can do whatever he wants in his or her courtroom. That is a fallacy, ladies and gentlemen. For no man is above the law. Equal protection of the law applies to everybody, all right? And because of that fact, the judge is more stringently bound by the law, okay? Because of his or her oath of office, first and foremost, okay? Now let's move forward here.
Do that in his courtroom. He could hold me in contempt of court and you guys could ship me off to the jail. But up here, there's no such thing as contempt of courthouse. You know what I mean?
You're welcome to get on this floor.
Okay, I was just
Without
wondering.
video. You can't video. We have it's a public court. It's an open court. You can sit in.
I can't be in court with a camera.
Correct.
If the judge wants me.
Okay, so what this woman is doing is practicing law without a license. She's giving legal advice at this point. She's telling this man that he can be up there if he wants, but without a camera, and she has no problem with it. Well, we really don't care what her problem is. First of all, she hasn't identified. Secondly, we don't know if she has an oath of office or if she's just an employee. Believe it or not, in a lot of these courthouses, most of the people that are in them are just employees. They don't actually have an oath of office, okay? They work in there as civilian employees and have no obligation to the Constitution or to enforce it or protect it. But what she is doing is trying to practice law from what I see by telling him that he can't do something, that it's the law, okay? So she's making a legal determination, near as I can tell, without a bar card, without ever going to law school, and because of that, she's providing legal advice to it.
Out of the courtroom, I gotta do what he wants, you know what I mean? But in here, this in his courtroom, so could we just have your bailiffs trained, like, judge's orders apply in the courtroom, but out here, the judge, it's like if the judge says I couldn't go until, like, the post office, it's like, okay, that's not the law.
Actually, no. I won't.
You won't be trained?
No, I don't need to. I don't.
Is the judge your boss?
Yes.
Okay, that explains it then. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to try to tell you, boss. Are you the guy from downstairs? Yeah. Please tell me there's somebody down there watching the door.
Now, that woman may be, in fact, the judge's bailiff. Again, the sheriff's department is supposed to be distinct and separate from the judiciary, okay? They may be there as civil servants keeping the peace, but they are supposed to, there's a separation of powers, if you will, between the executive branch, the judicial branch, then the legislative branch, all right? And the sheriff is supposed to be single and separate. He's actually supposed to be keeping an eye for tyrants, giving directives and legal advice, telling men and women they can't do what they have a constitutionally protected right to engage in and do. This agent and agency should be instructing these people, look, you are not allowed to violate this man's rights, and if you persist to tell him that he cannot film in this public building, I will be subject to have to arrest you, all right, for harassing this man, for badgering him, all right?
He is absolutely correct.
Thank God. Great. Off-duty deputy. All right. Okay, you're not. Are you allowed back here at all? No. What's going on back here? Nothing, but you're not allowed back there. Superior Court office? Sir.
Now he points out that the man is not allowed beyond that point, and he said, "Why? What's going on back here? Why can't I go back there?" He says, "You're just not allowed beyond this point." The interesting fact about this is that he points out that there's a Superior Court office. Now, the Superior Court office is not the Superior Court room, okay? And that man has a right to go into the Superior Court office to inquire of the clerk anything that he see fit. Okay, because the court system is open to the American people 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to address their redress of grievance should they have one. At this point, the man has a cause of action for a grievance that he could be filing because of the actions of these actors and what they are in fact doing to him at this point. Let's go forward.
Let's step on him for a minute longer on that, right? All right, I get pulled over by the cop or sheriff or whatever, right? We keep on hearing this 48 hours. They're allowed to hold us for 48 hours. That is not true. That was actually developed because judges had to travel at one time, right? You may had to get another judge from another county to come in because the judges was really not as many judges we have now, right? So when you get pulled over and let's just say you don't have a driver's license, then cops is going to confiscate your car and take you to jail or whatever, right? Or for any reason to be in jail, right? Always ask them to see a magistrate right away. Because if you don't get to see the judge before you get in that jail cell, that is a lack of due process. You are in jail before punishment. Unless that officer did see you commit a crime. Okay? That's the reason why the 48-hour thing is to see the judges. All right, what they did is when they got enough judges, now they just kind of transferred into, we're just going to hold him here and we'll hold him until Monday and all that. People, courts are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Period. That's how they get warrants at 3 o'clock in the freaking morning. They had to get a judge to sign his warrants. Well, that same judge could be woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning to go through the due process and make sure that the cop was actually lawfully arresting you.
So, you just spoke with the judge. They just had a conference that talked about this matter. Okay? So they're looking into some issues, and they just asked that you hang tight on the landing until they check into it.
Now, he's coming out. He's saying the judge is having a meeting with other judicial staff, bar association, perhaps, who knows, other lawyers, and they want this man to move from a place where he currently is and wishes to be to a destination perhaps he doesn't want to be, okay? And if he doesn't want to go there, that constitutes, false imprisonment, per se. And we'll get into that a little bit later, because if that man doesn't want to move to that location, and he's got reason to believe that if he doesn't move to that location, some type of harm will innately fall upon him. Okay, that is the very definition for false imprisonment. Remember, in false imprisonment, when I've been doing my last few videos teaching you guys about false imprisonment, it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody has to physically attack you or put their hands on you. Just the mere words alone can constitute false imprisonment.
Which is what I said a couple of videos of mine, right? Detained. You are custodial arrested. All right? So you've been falsely arrested. because they have not gathered up evidence to proceed forward on their claims. Okay? But the detained is a custodial arrest, people. You have been arrested. You, regardless what the whole situation is, you've been falsely arrested because of some type of magical word of suspicion that out of 8 billion people, there's 8 billion people that don't think the same, so they're all suspicious. Alright? They make it so broad that 8 billion people are suspicious.
When there's voting going on.
Gotcha.
There's no videotaping of the voting. That's not right then.
All I'm asking, they're checking into some restrictions. All right.
Again, we've got the other bald cop there, Mr. Clean, unidentified, unverifiable agent and agency, not producing any credentials, his oath of office, or his bond, alleging that during elections, you cannot record in the building, okay? He, again, is practicing law, trying to enforce his thought process and theory on this man who absolutely has a right to do what he is doing, okay?
They just ask that you hold tight on the landing until they're able to verify, and then...
And we're going to step it up one more notch. Why is he waiting for a judge? Ain't he supposed to be at least knowledge enough to know what he can and cannot do in there? As the peacemaker, I should say, in that courthouse, right? That's what he's supposed to be paid for, is to be a peacemaker. So if any judges step out of line of the Constitution, or you step out of line and all that, he's to step in and intervene. But he has to have enough knowledge to do so. Why is he waiting for judges and attorneys together and have a little conference about this when this man should already know that too?
We'll let you back up here.
They're gonna verify it, man. It's fine. Unless I'm breaking a law.
I'm politely asking you to wait on the landing until they check into
I think he's done.
restrictions.
Did you guys get it figured out back there?
This is the judge. I
This is the
ask that you
judge.
treat him with respect, please.
Okay, now, he's pointing out that the man that's approaching him as a judge, I would ask you to treat him with respect, all right? Now, there's a difference between a judge and a ministerial administrator administrating a bankruptcy, unjustifiably taxing people without representation due to statutory edicts from the legislator, all right? This guy doesn't command or compel any respect from anybody, because what he in fact enforces is statutes, codes, city ordinances, rules and regulations and provisions, and most often, in most cases, without a warrant, without a grand jury indictment, without actual any criminal intent or evidence of intent to commit a crime, and they prosecute people day in and day out to unjustly enrich themselves on behalf of their principal and fleece people, okay? And then for doing such a good job of taxing people without representation, ladies and gentlemen, they get these nifty little things that are called grants or block grants, which are chunks of change for doing a really good job of violating people's rights and throwing them in cage and charging them fees and fines for arbitrary acts that are blatantly in violation of the Constitution. Let's move forward here. We're about to see the tyrant come out and wield his awesome power of theory of law.
I treat everyone with respect, so I start getting disrespect to myself, man. What's going on? How's it going? Keep telling me what's going on. And I have no problem. There seems to be some misconception that, you judges can just kind of make rules for the whole courthouse. And I was trying to inform them, you get to make your own rules for your courtroom, but as long as I'm not going in, not filming in, there's not really a problem with me getting up here, because the First Amendment, as you know, there shall be no law passed abridging the freedom of speech. I'm sure you are, but...
Now, I have a theory about why he stops him from talking about the First Amendment and the abridgment in violation of the First Amendment. And it's because, and this again is just my theory, is that the second this man utters the law into existence, the judge no longer has, or the alleged judge no longer has plausible deniability that he didn't know the law or wasn't duly informed of the law. All right, so I have my theory about why he stops him, okay?
Yeah, this is
I do agree with that.
their problem. I don't have a problem. And I know my laws, I know my rights. I can't go in there. I mean, I don't agree that you should be able to hold me in contempt of court for doing a First Amendment protected activity, but that's the way. I mean, you guys throw people in cages for it.
Now, he's saying that, that they can make their own rules in the court, yada, yada, yada. That's all a bunch of horseshit rhetoric. It's in direct violation of the First Amendment. The courts are open to the public and to the people at all times, which means that if we want to go in there and record what's going on in there, we have every right to do so. And the only reason they don't want men and women, such as this man, or myself in their recording, is because we're very learned. And what they are doing behind those closed doors, all right, a private military tribunal, is fleecing and extorting people for victimless crimes in most instances. Now, even if it was a actual criminal trial where somebody was indicted by a grand jury, the public absolutely has a right to know what's going on in there. After all, it will be published in the paper. More than likely, there will be news media in their recording. However, the news media and most papers within your community are governed by lawyers. That's right. Lying, looting, pandering pieces of crap who dictate whether or not certain information can be printed in the paper, whether or not certain information can be heard on certain video footage will be released to the general public because they have a facade to maintain in order to keep up being tyrants and not being run over by the American people running down there wanting to hang them from saddle horns, all right? Off of...
And just so you know, even when you're voting for your representative, you technically and actually not even voting for your representative. You're voting for an attorney to represent your representative. Because the attorneys is the one that's telling what your representative can and cannot do. But what's the purpose of having a representative if some guy that you didn't vote in is telling what he can and cannot do? And, you know, this is just about everything else. Attorneys has got their little hands in every little single thing in government. There's a reason why I distress bar grievance.
The back of a horse, all right? So they have an interest, a collected interest in keeping we the people out of those rooms. They don't have a right to tell us that we can't be in there. They don't have a right to tell us that we can't record in there. They don't have a right to ask us or to demand that we ask for permission to bring a stenographer into the room or witnesses into the room. All of that shit is arbitrary. Okay, and it's operating under the color of law, which although resembles law, is in fact no law at all. It is not the fucking law, all right? Now pay attention to this tyrant, because it gets better. I mean, this guy has got a lawsuit like none other, and this tyrant here should be removed from the bench, fucking effective immediately. This guy should lose his job immediately, because he doesn't take the time to arrest this man for violating the man who's recording's rights. This man right here